one thing that you might have learned from one of the tutorials is a way of setting the mouse position or setting the turtle so that when you click on it, it'll follow the mouse around. And you probably saw something like, so in my rules tab, I have this thing follow mouse, and my procedure is to follow mouse, set pause, mouse pause, end. So a problem with this one is when you click on it, if you go up too high, it wraps around and starts going on the other side. And what you might want, depending on your game, you might rather have it, kind of stop at the edges, so that you can't go past. So what we want, so if you want like behavior more like this red turtle, I'll show you the procedure. So his follow mouse looks a little bit different. Okay, so it's more complicated because you're checking the boundaries of the main window here. So I have this procedure to follow mouse, and then what it does is it calls another procedure that I wrote. It calls this follow mouse XY, which is right down here. And the reason I wrote that is I just want to pull out so the first mouse pause and the last mouse pause. So the mouse pause is going to be a list, right? So if I say show mouse pause, it gives me a list of two numbers, right? An X and a Y. So if I first, if I say show first mouse pause, that just pulls the first one out of the list. The mouse pause is changing because I keep moving the mouse around. And then show last mouse pause. Okay, so it pulls out those two, the X and the Y from there. Or like you could do the same thing with the turtle's position, right? You could just say show first pause, and that's the X core, right? So anyway. So that's what I did. I said I want the first mouse pause and the last mouse pause. So this is the X and this is the Y. And then I have this procedure named follow mouse XY. So if you're writing a procedure that needs inputs, there are some primitive procedures that need inputs, right? Like forward needs a number, so you can go forward 5. Right needs a number, so you can go right some amount, right 90 or something. So if you want to write a procedure that needs input, you put the, let me make this a little bigger. You put the name of the procedure in the regular way, and then you, however many inputs you need, you put a colon and some name that you're going to call your input, because basically this X is a variable. You probably heard of variables before, maybe not. But the idea is that whatever input I give you, whatever input is given, so this could, whatever numbers are, whatever number this is and whatever number that is, there's two of them, right? So there's two inputs, and the first input, inside this procedure, I'm going to call the first input X, and inside this procedure, I'm going to call the second input Y. So I'm checking X to see if X is less than minus 278. So what I did was I just moved this guy over, to see how far do I want him to possibly go. And I got I must have had him a little closer. Yeah, and so the X core here is minus 278. So that's the limit. That's as far as I want him to go. And then so if he did go farther than that, then his X core would be less than minus 278, right? Because the X core keeps getting less and less and less going this way. All right. So if it's less than minus 278, then I want to back it up, because if I leave it at minus 278, then it'll never, it'll kind of get stuck there. I can show you what I mean by that in a little bit. But so what I'm doing is, the first thing I'm doing is I'm setting it back to minus 277, and then I'm using this special word that really only works inside of procedures called stop. So you've probably seen stop all. You know, stop all makes everything, whatever, you know, it's like clicking on this stop sign. It stops all the action. But there's also this special word that won't work inside the command center. If I'm in the command center, and I type in stop, it says stop can only be used in a procedure. Okay, so I have this procedure here. When I say stop, what that tells Logo is, it says don't go any further in this procedure. Just scoot right down to the end, and we're done with the procedure. So we're not going to do any more steps in this procedure. So what I'm saying is, basically, if you went out of bounds, just get yourself a little bit back in bounds and then stop. Okay, and I'm doing that for each side, right? So I'm checking to see if x gets greater than 278. So if x is way over here and it's at 278, if it goes any farther than that, I bump him back to 277 and stop. Okay, and the same thing, you know, if it gets too small or if it gets too big in the y directions. And then, so in all these cases, right, I'm saying, you know, get it back in bounds and stop. Don't do any more. But if none of these happened, then I never called stop, right? So if I'm greater than minus 278 and less than minus 278, that means I'm somewhere in here. Okay? Or the same thing if I'm greater than minus 150 and less than minus 146. If I'm between minus 150 and 146, I'm in here someplace. So if all of these tests failed, then I'll actually get to perform this. If any of these tests succeed, if he's out of bounds on any of the four sides, he'll go back inbounds and stop. And then no more, this procedure won't be executed anymore. So notice stop is not like click off or anything. It's not going to click off your mouse. It's just going to say don't do any more in this procedure. And then if you weren't told to not do any more in this procedure, then you do the set pause mouse pause. So the idea is you're only doing the set pause mouse pause if you're in bounds. Okay, so that's how that works.